author, loan officer, coach, but most importantly, for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to be your interviewer and community leader here in the Generate series. Today, I have Karen Briscoe, who Karen is one of the most badass women I know. She's a realtor in the Virginia area who also finds time to coach and has found time to write 3 books and still keeps in touch with her adult children. I don't remember. Are you a grandma yet?
No, I still have, our son is getting married in November. So we're doing it the old fashioned way. We're getting married first.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. But yeah, you and I met years and years and years ago, and we keep in touch. And I have to tell you, I have both copies of your book, which, and I know you came out with a new book. We'll talk about it in a little bit. But these Commit to Get Leads, Success in 5 Minutes a Day. And the dirty little secret is I've got to tell everybody, my book would not exist unless I had read yours first, which is, you know, a daily prescription. I have mine all tabbed out, and here's my Scott Groves copy, my notes. You know, this is a daily tip for basically the real estate community on how to improve their business, prospect, lead generate. And when I read that, I was like, oh, you know, loan officers need the same thing, but loan officers have a much shorter attention span than realtors. So I had to go with only the 2-month version. And then lo and behold, you came out with 5 minutes a day for a 66-day challenge. I mean, you and I are just so closely aligned mentally. So first of all, thank you for being on. And second of all, what do people need to know about you besides that slapstick introduction that I gave you right now?
Oh, it's outstanding. The one other thing is the 5 Minute Success podcast, of which you've been a guest, along with an array of amazing guests. I'm sure lots of people, you know, Hal Elrod and Jeff Woods, who's of The One Thing, and Jay Papasan with Keller Williams, and lots of top agents in the area, well, in the United States and beyond. So that's the other claim to fame. And you hit on it, the head. My main mission is to get people to lead generate and to commit to lead generate, because that really is the beginning of the process. If you have leads, if you have business coming in, I mean, I know this whole thing about generate is the idea of, do you know where your business is coming from now and down the line? And the best solution for that is to lead generate.
Yeah. I know you've been doing this for 16 years, and we won't say how long you've been doing real estate in general, and sold and helped people buy, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes, and you're a top producer in your area. If you can somehow maybe go back to the beginning, just in case there's somebody, you know, who I kind of feel for is the people that just maybe got into the sales business and then got hit with like, oh, well, now you got to shelter in place and change your whole business model. So can you maybe talk about a little bit before you had the big database, before you had the hundreds of clients that were going to sell, or, you know, you told me now you have your clients' children are buying houses with you or selling houses with you. If you can go back to the beginning, what does that look like for people just to adopt a habit of lead generation? Like, what does that even mean to you when you say you got to go out and lead generate?
Well, I started in the residential side of the business after 9/11. So we had very similar issues in terms of safety and security, and people weren't sure and certain about what the future held for them. So I committed to contacting in some form or fashion. I do a lot of notes, but also this is really, email wasn't quite as strong as it is now. It was a lot of personal phone calls or notes. And I committed to 5 a day. And that's what I call activity blocking. And the reason why activity blocking, I know there's many people that advocate for time blocking. The thing about time is it passes regardless. A certain quantity of activity, and 5 is what I committed to, per day is, first of all, it's very doable. And you can track it. And by tracking it, I actually had my first week in the business in August of 2002, right after 9/11. And I can attribute business that generated out of that first week. The other thing about tracking is you can see what's working. You can see what you need to tweak or adjust or change. You can see what the profile is, your avatar of your client. You can then look for that preferred avatar and do more of that, do more of what is working. The other thing is it's very freeing, because I found that when I did my work, then I could go on and do the other things. what happened is also I learned to what I call front load. So I could work ahead. That made time for vacations and travel, as you said, with my adult children, which we're not doing much of that right now, but we did do a lot of it last year. And I'm so glad that I did, because people kept saying to me, Karen, you're doing a lot of travel. It's like, I just think at some point in my life, I'll be closer to home. I thought it was going to be a health event, really, for what a family member. That was what was going to keep me closer to home. Who knew that it was going to be this? So, living the life you love now, as you create and co-create the life of your dreams is what I think. That's what my mission is. That's what I want. And by doing this consistent activity, then you can set up your business to do that.
By the way, I want to make sure we pull at that string a little bit, because I think that's a really important concept that, I haven't talked about or fleshed out, and a lot of other people haven't really fleshed that out, is this idea of activity block, don't time block. And what I think I hear you saying is like, hey, Scott, if you tell yourself you're going to make calls from 10 to 11 and you're going to make calls, well, 10 to 11 is going to come and go whether you do the activity or not. So instead, Scott, why don't you tell yourself you're going to make 10 connection calls with realtors? Because look, it might be 10 o'clock, it might be 5 o'clock, it might be midnight. You got to call your 10 realtors. Am I hearing that correctly? Like, block out the activity and not necessarily the time?
Yes, absolutely. And the beautiful thing about that is I'm really old school, and I use a calendar, and I actually write in the names. And that has a powerful aspect to it as well. By tracking that activity, then you're going to be more likely to see what is working. And when you were talking about the 61 days versus 66 days and the challenge and everything, the research for a habit formation that is most commonly cited is the one of the 6 days to start a habit. Some people say 21 days, but what happens with 21 days is I find that in the beginning, people are very excited and evangelistic about their new habit, like people who start Whole30s or get a Peloton, right? I mean, you've seen it. And then the next 21 days or few weeks are like evaluating, do I really want to get on that bike every day? And then the next 21 days, if they stay with it, if they power through that dip, you may remember Seth Godin in the dip. If you power through the dip and you say, yes, I'm committing to this, and then you get through the part of the cycle where you're in the final 21 plus days, then you start to experience the benefits of it. But with any habit, 66 days is to jumpstart the habit. As James Clear said in Atomic Habits, if it's truly a habit, you're going to keep doing it. Like you wouldn't stop flossing your teeth or brushing your teeth, even though you've set the habit. Same thing with lead generation. The idea is to many people, perhaps as you're doing this generate right now, they're like, I need to do something to jumpstart my lead generation, my business development, my prospecting. And so that's why committing to something like what you're doing is so fantastic, because it gets people motivated and going.
And let me ask you that's another thread I want to pull at. See, so much great knowledge from Karen just in 5 minutes. By the way, if you are watching this in the Generate group or YouTube or streaming or wherever you're watching this, you know what you're supposed to do. Like, click the like button, leave a comment, tag Karen, share the post, start a watch party, whatever you feel comfortable doing, or just add some of your friends that need to hear this kind of information to our Facebook group. But I just want to go on that commitment a little bit, right? Because people can be in the Facebook, they can get the external motivation, they can hear from their manager, their whatever. But at the end of the day, and I'll admit that I'm a gross human being, when I fall out of the habit of brushing my teeth at night, I fall out of the habit of brushing my teeth at night. I always seem to brush my teeth in the morning, but at night, it's like sometimes I just slither into bed and whatnot. So if you're giving somebody their best advice for re-kickstarting that internal motivation, right? Because you can log on every day and watch these videos. You can watch these interviews. You can be inspired as soon as Karen's done talking or Alex was done talking yesterday. But if you don't have the internal motivation to go make the calls, write the thank you cards, go door knocking when it's appropriate again for health and safety reasons, like, how do people find that internal drive to start doing the lead generation or brushing their teeth or, going on a walk every day to lose a few pounds? Like, what's your secret sauce as a coach and top producer to say, like, hey, this is how you trigger yourself?
Well, there's a lot of, again, research on habit formation. One is what's called habit stacking. So stack it on something else that you already do, and you have that in your behavior in your life. That's why the Miracle Morning is so wonderful, right? Because it's a habit stack. It has, Hal Elrod has set up these savers so people can get their morning started in a way that's going to lead for a more productive, happy, healthy day. So it's the same kind of thing with habit formation. So for any kind of habit formation. So if your commitment is to lead generate, then you would want to attach that to maybe something you want to do. And that will add the motivation. See, that's why I also like tracking, because once I've done my lead generation for the day, or for the week, then I'm free to go do something else. And I find that to be very freeing. Now, if you've done this over and over and over again and you're not converting, that's the consult to sell part. If you're finding, oh, I'm making a lot of calls, but nobody's actually buying or selling with me, then at some point you need to have some sort of training on that. But I'm talking about people that need to just start the process and get consistent at it, because it's the consistency that will tell you, long term, what level of activity, needs to start at the beginning. And I use, many people use the example of the roller coaster in the sales business, because what happens is a salesperson will get a lead and they'll work real hard. It's like riding to the top of the roller coaster, and they get up there and they get the deal done. And then they go way back down again because they didn't do any consistent lead generation all the time they were working on that lead, right? So if you go to a theme park ever again, you'll remember that they start the cars out consistently all the time, right? Each car goes up. That's what is to get a business built that's going to sustain and create scale and leverage and systems, is you have to be consistent at the beginning. That's where it's key, and to keep that consistency. So those are just some of the strategies that I found other people, myself, use to success.
I love the idea of writing down physically in a calendar. I think, because of the social media and smartphones, we've got so many bleeps and blips and tweets and all kinds of crazy stuff that it's very easy if we say, oh, we're just going to track it digitally, or we're going to have an alarm in our phone or something like that. Old school idea of just, hey, if you're committed to writing 5 thank you cards a day, write them down on a calendar. I just turned to a random page in your book. August 23rd, checklist empowerment. And you go through like, hey, have a physical checklist to go through all the stuff to hold yourself accountable and manage your routine. It's like, if you're the type of person that has a hard time with that consistent lead generation, buy a copy of this book, Real Estate Success in 5 Minutes. You almost don't have to be a realtor. If you're in any sales business, you could flip to any page and it's like, oh, you've got mail, how to manage your mail, how to put in applications. Don't confuse brains with a bull market. That was one of my favorite, by the way.
You like that one? I mean, is that not the truth of this last market? Everybody thought they were so smart.
Yeah.
And now we all know who, it was Warren Buffett says, we know who's been swimming naked when the tide goes out. We all know who's been swimming naked. We also all know the people who've been consistently lead generating, because even though the market has corrected, there are people that are still doing business, right, Scott?
Absolutely.
And what is the key to their success? I find is that they are consistently. Now we have done some, extra efforts. It's not like we just stayed with that one method. We've added more video and more contacts with our sphere, and so we're reaching out in other ways, in being mindful of the state of the market and people's situations. But the people it's pretty obvious. It's pretty obvious who's been swimming naked.
Yeah. And, maybe you could speak into that a little bit. Like, what is the tactful way that your team is reaching out, right? Because we never know what's going on the other side of that phone call. Maybe somebody is legitimately dealing with a death in the family. Maybe there's a loss of a job. And the last thing they want to hear is like, oh, do you want to go buy a new house that you can't afford? Or do you want to think about selling a house that you need to get rid of because you're in financial dire straits? How is your team approaching and kind of threading that needle of, look, we got to have a pipeline and an economy to go back to. So you and I have to keep lead generating, but we also want to be cognizant of the fact that, like, hey, there's a lot of tragedy and calamity going on out there in the world. And I know you guys are in DC. Luckily, you're not in, or you're in the DC area. Luckily, you're not in the New York area. But how are you threading that needle of like being tactfully aggressive, without offending your client base. Can you speak into that a little bit?
The thing is about real estate transactions, almost always there is another life event going on. In I call it the D's, right? So the two top reasons why people move is death and divorce. And then you have the next one is diapers. So there's nothing more motivated than a pregnant woman. And then you have diamonds, people getting married. Then you have downsizing, and you have the dogs. So that has always been the nature of our business. And we've always come from a heart of service and reaching out and how we can help. And so we have continued to do that as being not a person of knowledge about how we're handling real estate transactions, because people's in this area, Homeland Security determined it as being essential service, because we do have so many people moving for all sorts of reasons into the Northern Virginia, DC metro region. So we are looking at it as an opportunity of service. And, in the other market times that were very challenging at 9/11 and the financial market crash, we were dealing with people who lost jobs, had, you had to do either a short sale or some sort of distress sale for their home. So we reach out as people who can offer assistance and service. And we've been doing a lot of it based on videos that are knowledge-based and information-based, and we're sharing them with our sphere. And then that seems to get into the hands of the people who need to hear the message.
Wait, you mean the best way to market to people like you care is to actually care?
I find that it works. And we've always had charity work. We've been very involved in our community. We consider ourselves community stewards. And so we've been doing that as well. And it's not like we're just, coming in like some people are getting into it, which is good. I mean, we need more people of service, but we've been consistently doing it. And so we're recognized as community stewards. I find that people want to talk about it. They just don't know who to talk about it with. And so being that resource is been what we found to be the most impactful.
Yeah, I'll probably get called a chauvinist for even saying this out loud. So I'll just go ahead and say it out loud, and people can judge me as they think. In a lot of ways, I kind of feel for myself as a provider that like part of my job is not to put a bunch of stress on my wife as, the person running the household and raising our kid and doing a majority of the domestic work around our house. Like, I just feel like it's not really my place to put stress on her. So when I hear from a friend like you, Karen, or I hear from somebody who I've done business with in the past, and they're like, hey man, what's going on? What's stressing you out? It's nice to talk to a third party who I'm not as intimately involved with as my wife, right? Because my wife's already stressed out about having to homeschool and take care of the kids. And, she's cooking for me every day because we can't go eat out, which is new for us. And for me to also come off my computer and be like, oh God, we lost this deal. This client left us at the altar, right? His loan documents were going out, that $7,000 I was planning on, and now it's gone. Like, I don't need to add that stress to her. So when somebody calls me from the outside, if Karen called me as my realtor and like, hey, Scott, like, how's it going? Like, what are you thinking? How are finances? I would be like emotionally very open to that call. And I think people are a little scared that maybe that steps over the line right now, or that's tacky, but I think that's wanted. I think people want to have those conversations.
The first thing when I'm out for a walk in the neighborhood or see anybody, at the store, even though we're all keeping our respectful distance, is like, how's the market? I mean, they all want to know what's going on, because everybody also cares about where they live and they care about their community. And so I find that people are wanting, again, respectfully, we have changed from, shouting our statistics to sharing how many people we've served, how many people we've helped, and in ways that we've helped. We've been doing more what we call community stories and home stories, so people see the human side of it, and less of, accolades. But we're finding that it's being received. I do think, though, that part of that is where we are in this cycle, at least in our market area, because we're starting to see loosening up of the restrictions, and people are starting to see that perhaps there is going to be no going back to normal. I'm confident of that. I think there will, like just like 9/11, we won't ever go to an airport the same again. We will have a similar type of scenarios for coming out of this. But at the same time, people are starting to see, and so many people, because they're in their home sheltering in place and their sanctuary, are realizing all the things about their home that maybe don't quite work for them so well. And then there are those that say there's going to be either a huge baby boom in 9 months, or there's going to be a lot of divorces because all the people that realize that they didn't really want to stay married to that person. So we anticipate actually long-term that housing is going to be the hardest, where the home is, people realizing that more than ever. So we really believe in our story and what we do for our clients. And we think that's a message to share. Not so much, sometimes it is today. I took a listing agreement today. They're like, okay, we waited long enough. We're ready. We're going to North Carolina. That was the plan. We're going to go. And we talk through their questions. We talk through their concerns. We're setting up, the systems in place to address them as best as we can. But there's not really ever a perfect time, Scott. And so I want to work with people to help them do what works best for them. And we're actually finding a lot of people are making moves because they want to make that move now so that they can enjoy the home.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. You mentioned a few things in there, and I had this conversation the other day with another one of our favorite people, Julie Reisler.
Yes.
And, we were talking about something that I know your new book, Flip Time, Love Life, it's very relevant. And this gives us an opportunity to pause, as a country, as a world, as a household, gives us a chance to pause and use this pandemic as an excuse to kind of reset. And I know a lot about what you talk about in your new book, and I'm embarrassed I haven't torn through the whole thing yet, but just the little bit that I've been able to skim over is kind of flipping that Maslow's hierarchy of needs and be like, hey, let's focus on who you want to be and what you want to do, and then build the calendar, the job, all of that life stuff around that. And what better excuse, quite frankly, and all due respect to anybody that's dealing with real tragedy. I don't want to make it sound like we're taking advantage of anybody's situation where they've had real loss. But if we're just looking for the silver lining, there's no better excuse than to say, hey, here's what I really want to focus on in my life. And here's all the stuff that I can put aside because this has been a hard reset. So tell us a little bit about your book and how that kind of plays into where we are right now in society as far as, being able to reset and actually love our life and flip our time on its head.
And the book came out of the fact, or from my life, that I had reached a high level of success, wonderful marriage, my husband over 3 decades, and as you mentioned, 2 adult children that are established and successful. And I looked around, I was going, oh, there's got to be something else. There's got to be more. And it came to me that this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. What if you work your way up the pyramid and you run out of time, and you don't have or make time for self-actualization? And it occurred to me that so many people said they were too busy to do the things they said they wanted to do. And there's a quote by Lazu, and Lazu said, time is a created thing. To say I don't have time is like saying I don't want to. Well, the paradox is this, COVID-19, this pandemic has created a lot of time for people. And so I believe that you may be on to what I see as well, and what Julie sees, is that this is an opportunity to really flip it all and say, okay, this is what's important. My home is important to me, and this is what I want in a home, and this is my family is important to me. My profession is important to me. I look at it as an opportunity to impact and improve people's lives. And I am blessed that I am paid well to do that. I'm good at what I do. And I believe that what I'm doing is good for people. So I actually have become, the more I have put my bliss, what a lot of people call, some people call it zone of genius, that would be Gay Hendricks, or bliss is Joseph Campbell in The Heroine's Journey. or self-actualization. The more I do that, then actually the more authentic I'm living, the more I'm going to have likely I'm going to have better relationships, and I'm going to connect with people on a deeper level. And actually everything else seems to fall in line. That's why I say it's flipping it. It's some people talk about work-life balance, some people call it time management. I'm like, it's really what the problem with those things is that, for example, work-life balance, that assumes that if you are working, then you're taking away from life, family and home or whatever it is that may be important to you. What if it's, it is life, right? Your work is your life, and you are coming at it from that way, then you're doing it because you want to do it.
I really appreciate something you said there is like, you've been wildly successful in a couple of different careers now, great husband that you've been with forever, 2 adult kids. And even in that, second stage, third stage, whatever stage of your life in, having the guts to say like, oh, I looked around and I was like, I don't know if this is enough. Maybe there's so much more I could be doing in my 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, however long it is we're going to live now. I saw a TED Talk that said, the first human being to live to 200 years old is probably alive right now. With medical advancements, there's some 5-year-old toddler that's going to make it to 200 years old. So, not this idea of like, oh, well, we live life to save enough so we can retire at 55 and sit home and golf once in a while. You're saying like, oh man, there's so much more in that next stage of your life. And I don't know who's watching this that needs to hear this, but there's somebody who's 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus that their kids have left the home and they're looking around being like, well, what the fuck do I do now? Excuse my language.
And that for me has become contribution, like doing this, the podcast, the books. I also call my creative endeavors. I'm still a mega agent. I mean, we sold 91 million last year. We already have almost 50 million on the book. So I'm a successful real estate agent. But I find that the meaning comes a lot from the contribution and the creativity. And so what I have found is that actually for me, energizes the rest of the business. But instead of waiting, like you said, which used to be the pattern, right? You go to school for 20 years and you work, have a career for so many years, and then you would enjoy life. I'm Hal Elrod says, to love the life you have now as you create, and I added co-create the life of your dreams, because I want to create the life of my dreams with the people who I care about. I want to co-create it. And you can do both. It's a both and. It to me, I used to look at it like an or, like I have to do all these things, then I have permission or whatever to do the other, the life part. And so this is having it be as part of, it is life. It's all life.
You slipped something in there that I don't want to let you get away with. Earlier in the talk, you said, well, I got to travel a lot with my family last year. And then right now you just said, hey, our team sold $91 million worth of real estate last year.
I know, at our best year ever.
Which puts you squarely in the top 0.1% agents in the country. So, there's somebody watching this right now that's like, well, to be a top producing realtor, I've got to be tied to my desk and my email, and I've got to work 7 days a week, and I don't have time to vacation. Oh my God, I don't have time to spend with my family. So Karen, tell us how it's done that you can have your best year ever. You can be in the top 0.1% of real estate agents in the country, and also travel kind of, whenever your heart desires with your family. Like, what is the secret sauce?
Well, I have an amazing business partner and team, and have set the systems in place. And that's, the third part of the book is, right, connect, to build, and grow. Because what so many salespeople and professionals do is they get on that, hamster wheel. They're only as good as their next deal. And there are things that you can do to build and grow a business. And yes, I look back on last year and everybody's going, Karen, you're traveling a lot. I'm like, yeah, well, it was a big birthday year for me. So I went to, my husband and I did Greece, Crete, and Santorini. And then my daughter and I did Switzerland. And then we took the whole family to Patagonia, where my son proposed to his fiance. And I look back and I go, I have no regrets, because if that's it, I don't think it is. it's probably it for this year. It's probably not going to happen this year. We had lots of trips planned this year too. But if that's it, I know I did it. And that's the part of, if you, there's this book called The Five Regrets of the Dying. And one of the number one regrets is I didn't do the things I said I wanted to do. And so I have this, I call it a life list on a bucket list. And I'm just like every, January, I say, this is what I'm going to do in this year. And because I want to live the life I love right now. The incredible thing about this whole experience of the pandemic is people look at me and go, oh my gosh, it's so good you did this last year. And I'm like, I know. So if anybody is saying they're waiting for whatever it is you're waiting for, it reminds me of that Dr. Seuss book, all the places you can go. You're playing that waiting game. Love the life you have right now, because that's really all anybody gets.
Yeah. And look, there's somebody watching this video or in this group who's like, man, I got to make my next sale. I got to sell something. I got to generate a lead just to pay my rent next month. And I sympathize that that's the facts for a lot of people. And we want this group to help those people. But at the end of the day, I'm guessing, I don't even think it has to be a guess. I'll just answer for you. If I said, hey, last year, by going to Patagonia and being away for 2 weeks and paying for the whole family to go on that trip, you probably lost out on a couple deals. Maybe there was a listing you didn't get back to in time. 10 years from now, is Karen really going to care that she closed 91 million instead of 95 million? Or is she going to be excited that she was on that hill in Patagonia, watching your son get engaged?
That's a really powerful question that you asked, because I did have that. Because I could look back to the age of 50. I turned 60 last year. I could look back to the age of 50, and it was 2009. And you know what was going on in 2009? The market was crashing right and left. And my son was in a semester abroad in Copenhagen, and I went, even though I didn't have the money, and he was in college, and we still had another kid coming to college. And then my husband and I went on this trip to Greece. And when I look back to 2009, do you think, I do remember one real estate transaction that was really awful. She fired me while I was in Greece, my 50th birthday in Greece, and she's firing me. And I was like, I'm releasing you to the universe. If you really can't wait till I get back, or you can't work with Lizzie, then I'm going to release you. So I come back and I just touch base with her. I was like, I really want to revisit this. And we did. And she ended up rehiring me, and I sold that house. It was $1 million. And I actually had the buyer. So I did that turned into 2 million. And then I did a purchase with her, which ended up being 1.4 million. So that one deal turned into 3.4 million. But I was being fired on my birthday trip to Greece. I really came to the realization for myself, and I understand really if this is the deal to pay the rent, and I have been there, and I understand how hard that is. But there is a point too where people can feel it. And it was when I released it, and then I was able to come back to it when we were all being more rational, that I was able to, and perhaps by releasing it, something else may come to you. Sometimes we hold too closely to things that we need to let go of. At least that's what I've discovered has been beneficial for me. But what you said is true. I think I only made $25,000 that year. It was awful. It was so hard. Were you in the business in 2009? All those short sales.
I was.
Oh my gosh.
I made $18,000 in 2009 and went almost $1 million in debt.
Yeah. And I had a kid in college, an expensive college, private college, and then one on the way going to college. Anyhow, but I look back on it, and the memories I have are the ones with my family. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, Greece and abroad trips. It could be, you can create special memories closer to home too. So I would just say that you may find that it will re-energize you, because oftentimes sales professionals, we really are very hard drivers. And the energy, and this is a good quote, it's energy, not time, is the fundamental currency of high performance. And I find that I come back energized when I have exercised, done something that's creative or contribution that gives me energy. I come back energized, and I actually am way more productive than if I just hard drive it through.
I want you to repeat that quote again, and then we're going to end on that note, because I think that's kind of a mic drop for the end of this interview. What was the quote? Energy is.
So I need to tribute to Tony Schwartz. Energy, not time, is the fundamental currency of high performance.
I love that. Energy, not time. That's valuable in a million ways we could talk about, but I think people get it. So Karen, I want to say thank you so much. I know your time is very valuable between your real estate team and your speaking and your coaching and your books. So thank you for being on. We're going to put all the links here in wherever this is streaming, YouTube, Facebook, the widget Wazoo machine. We'll make sure we put all the links to your books. And I just want to say thanks for being on, and thanks for inspiring me to write my book, because without your book, there's no my book. So
I know, I love it. And I have this poster back here for a reason, Scott. If I could do it, you can too. That's the message to your Generate community.
There you go. Thanks, Karen. I appreciate you.